Today, we're going to break down a concept called the friction theory. And honestly, it might just change your entire relationship with the internet. We're going to look at how platforms, like YouTube, are literally engineered to hijack your attention. And then, we'll lay out a super clear, practical strategy to take it all back.
I mean, we've all been there, right? You have a specific job to do, something you really need to get done, and you think, I'll just open a tab for one quick video, and then, boom. Suddenly, an hour of your day has vanished. You've gone down the rabbit hole. It feels like a personal failure, but here's the thing. It's not an accident. It is absolutely by design.
So to really get this, we have to start by understanding the psychology behind it all. Why do we even reach for that digital escape button in the first place? It's usually about something way deeper than just being bored.
Yeah, this is the big question, isn't it? Is it just that we have no willpower? Are the videos that good? Well, the truth is, the real reason we can't seem to look away is often because we're trying to look away from something else entirely.
And this brings us to a really key concept called escape behavior. The best way to think of it is as a coping mechanism. So when we face something difficult, studying for that big exam or that huge project at work, our brain senses discomfort. That feeling, that's what we're trying to escape. And YouTube, well, it's just the easiest, most frictionless exit ramp we've got.
What's kind of wild is just how fast this becomes an automatic loop. Every single time you feel that resistance from a task and you click over to YouTube for a little relief, you're teaching your brain a powerful lesson. It's classic negative reinforcement. The behavior, watching videos, takes away the bad feeling of anxiety. And if you do that enough times, it becomes a totally unconscious habit.
And this right here, this is such a critical point because it just shifts your whole perspective. This is not a moral failing, it's not a lack of discipline, it is a deeply, deeply conditioned response built up over thousands of little clicks. And just understanding that, really getting it, that's the first real step to changing anything.
Okay, so that's the psychology of it. Now, let's look at the brain chemistry, because this is where the platform's design gets incredibly powerful in keeping us totally hooked.
This metaphor is just perfect. Pulling the lever on a slot machine in Vegas is the exact same thing as scrolling the feed on YouTube. You have no idea what you're going to get, and that unpredictability, that's the secret sauce to its addictive power.
So there's a scientific term for this. It's called a variable reward schedule. You see, dopamine, which we always call the pleasure chemical, is actually more about anticipation. Your brain doesn't just release dopamine when you find a great video. It releases it in expectation of finding one. Every single thumbnail, every recommendation, it's a new little promise, a new potential reward, and that keeps that dopamine circuit firing and just begging you to keep on scrolling.
And this contrast is so important to understand. You see, completing meaningful work, that also releases dopamine, but it's slow, it's steady, it's predictable. YouTube, on the other hand, offers this rapid, unpredictable, high-intensity hit. And our brains are basically efficiency machines, right? So they very quickly learn to prefer the quick fix.
And here's the real kicker, the long-term consequence of that preference. When your brain gets used to this absolute fire hose of stimulation, its whole baseline shifts. Those slower, more effortful rewards from doing deep, focused work, they start to feel less satisfying. They feel, well, boring. Now, this isn't permanent, but it totally explains why it can feel almost impossible to focus after a binge-watching session.
So we get the psychology, we get the chemistry. What now? What's the solution? Well, it turns out we've probably been looking at this all wrong. It's time for a completely new strategy.
This right here is the big idea. We always think we just need more self-control, right? More discipline. But willpower is a finite resource. It goes up and down with our mood, our stress, how much sleep we got. Relying on it is kind of like trying to hold back a flood with a tiny bucket. It's just not going to work.
And that brings us to the real solution, friction theory. The idea is to stop trying to rely on our internal motivation and instead start engineering our external environment. The principle is super simple. When something is easy, we do it more. The moment it becomes even a little bit more difficult, how often we do it just drops dramatically.
And this slide just brilliantly illustrates why this is so necessary. These platforms are absolute masterpieces of frictionless design. There is zero space between the impulse to watch and the action of watching. Everything is engineered to make it as easy as possible to start and even easier to just keep going.
So this is our new mission. We are not going to wage a war against our own brain's conditioning. That's exhausting, and let's be honest, it rarely works. Instead, we're going to become architects of our own digital environment. We're going to strategically add back those small barriers that technology has so carefully removed.
Okay, so let's get practical. What does adding friction actually look like in your day-to-day life? And maybe more importantly, what's the real payoff from making these kinds of changes?
Here are 5 simple, totally concrete strategies. I think of each one as just a small act of environmental design. Logging out? That disrupts the personalized feed. Turning off autoplay? That gives you back your choice. Deleting the app forces you to use the clunkier web version. The goal for every single one of these is the same: to introduce a tiny pause, a little decision gap that lets your rational brain catch up with that impulse.
Now, just a quick heads up. When you first start doing these things, you might feel a little restless, maybe bored, even anxious. This is completely normal. It is not a sign that you need YouTube. It's a sign that your brain is adjusting to a lower level of stimulation. It's actually a signal that the process is working.
So what you're actually experiencing is something called reward system recalibration. As you turn down that fire hose of easy dopamine, your brain's sensitivity to normal rewards starts to come back. And then all of a sudden, the satisfaction from solving a hard problem or finishing a chapter of a book, it actually starts to feel good again. Ultimately, this is about a really fundamental shift. It's about moving from a state of passive consumption, which just fragments our attention into a million pieces, to a state of active creation. Now, creation is harder, yeah, but it integrates our attention. It's the difference between just reacting to what an algorithm feeds you and actively building something that's your own. In this quote, it really captures the whole essence of the payoff. When you reclaim your focus, you don't just get more time back, you get back the mental energy and the capacity to build things, businesses, skills, knowledge, art. That is the true reward.
So the final question to really ask yourself is this: are you using these tools intentionally, or are they using you automatically? The goal isn't to demonize technology at all. It's about reclaiming your own agency. It's about shifting from being a product of a platform's design to being a person who uses it as a tool, on your own terms. And ultimately, it's about choosing where your life's finite, precious energy goes.